Right, so just to recap to see if you can remember what we learned, which is the opening one no trump and opening one opposite. Can you tell me, if you held this hand, what you would open? One, two. Oh, these are spades.
Yes,
Yeah.
one spade.
One spade.
Yeah. And what would you, if you were this person's partner, what would you supply?
You pass. Because it's just 5. Oh, it's 5 points.
Oh.
5 to
Oh.
win.
5.
You could 5 points. So you could see
Just 1 second,
2 speeds.
just to make it a bit easier for you.
2 speeds. 2 speeds.
Yes.
2 speeds.
Yeah, we're all happy with that, yeah.
Happy now.
Happy now. What's about this hand here? What would you open with this one?
Pass. It's 11 points.
As you can see, the 4 of clubs has been replaced by the Jack of clubs. This is in order to have the requisite amount of points in order to open one no trump. Unfortunately, when the teacher first wrote out or added the points up, she was half asleep, and there was, in fact, only 11. There is now 12 points.
Oh,
One trump.
yeah, good. And what would you reply?
Pass.
Pass. Everybody
Pass.
happy with pass? Yeah, I think
Yeah,
so.
10 points.
Happy with pass.
Yeah.
Good. This is a little, this is a hand where north is in 4 spades. And this person's led the king of clubs. Okay? Now, as you can see, just looking at the hand, you've got 2 losing diamonds here. And a losing, no, that's a club, 2 losing clubs and a losing heart, and diamond. And you've also got a spade to lose. So that's 4 losers in your hand, isn't it? Between you, you've got to lose 4 tricks. So you've got to somehow make an extra trick. As you can see, you've got a singleton heart here. And when you've paid the king of clubs, you should take it with the ace. Now, you might be tempted to play the 5 to the queen and think, oh, I'll make the ace and king and throw something away. The only trouble is, you haven't got, now the ace of clubs has gone, you haven't got a guaranteed entry to your hand without the opposition getting in and possibly playing their clubs. So, while you're here with the ace, the best thing is, might seem strange, is to play the ace of hearts, the queen, then play the king of hearts and throw away one of your losing clubs on the king. Yeah? If you had the ace of diamonds here, it would be different because you could play small to the queen and then come back to the ace and play the ace and king, throw away the clubs that way. But because you haven't, it seems counterintuitive, but you should throw that like that. Yeah? Understand that? Yeah? Sometimes it's difficult to do that. You think it seems a bit silly to do that. Right, I've also got another hand here, which, let me just check my little book, which one this one is, because I was writing it and I wrote this out about 6 times and I kept getting it confused. I don't know why. It just, because in the group here, I've got it out this is the EBU, Beginning Bridge book, which is a very good book if any of you want to buy it. I think I have mentioned it to you before. And I can get it discounted for you. Right. Sorry.
You might need a new one.
So, right, King Jack. Yeah. So this contract is being played in No Trumps by South. So, would you lead in no trumps? Fourth hearts. Fourth highest if you like a suit. Can you see what happens? You play the 4, they play the 3. This hand must play the 10.
Mhm.
This hand then has plays the jack. Now this hand is going to get in with the ace of spades. This is bound to play spades. So they're going to get in with the ace of spades. When they play their 8, it'll go through this hand here, which will have the king. If they play the king, they can play the ace. If they play the 9, they can play the queen. They take all those tricks, don't they? Yeah? So they defeat the contract. But if this contract is played in spades, I just have to slightly change the declarer's hand, because obviously, no, it's all right, stay like that. I've done the spades right. If this was playing in spades, and this one was still on lead, what would you lead then?
Queen. 7? On the doubleton?
You wouldn't lead the hearts at all.
Because they're trump.
You wouldn't lead the heart, because you've got to give them a trick. There's totally different leads when you're playing in no trumps to when you're playing in a suit. In no trumps, you lead your 4th highest up, but in a trump suit, you would never lead away from an ace or a king, because you're going to give them the contract by playing that in this situation. So if you play, for instance, because your ace and queen are assets, so if you lead a heart, it gives South a vital 10 to trick. On any other lead, they won't make the contract, but if you lead a heart, they'll make the contract. Do you see?
So it doesn't matter what else you lead.
No, you can lead any of these other suits, it doesn't matter. You can actually lead a trump. It's safe because you've got 7, 3, 2. Yeah. You could lead this, you could lead this, but you can't lead that.
What was the trumps again?
Spades. They just show you the difference between, because it is different in suit contracts and in no trumps. And I've got a list of standard leads here. I've got a scorecard, which I have to give you one. Where's my other board gone? Oh, it is. Right, so these are the standard leads. So this is your holding, and this is if you're playing no trumps or suit, just to show you the different type thing you would lead. So if you had king, queen, jack, 4, whether you're playing in no trumps or suit, you always lead the king. Yeah? If you've got queen, jack, 10, 4, whichever you play, you always lead the queen. And then jack. So as you can see, if you've got a top of a sequence, that's a good lead, whether you're in trumps or not. But this one here, king, queen, 4, 3, 2. This is different now. If you're in no trumps, you don't lead the king in this situation. It's not supported by the jack. It hasn't got king, queen, jack. It's only king, queen to 4. So in this, in no trumps, you lead the 3. Whereas in a suit contract, you lead the king, because the king, you're trying to promote the queen to make, but in no trumps you want to make slower tricks. In trump suit, you're trying to make quick tricks. But you've got this, again, a similar sort of thing. In no trumps, you lead the 4. And in trumps, you lead the ace. It's totally different. So you've got to get that into your head when you're on a lead. Because the first, especially the first lead, it's the most important card of the game probably, and it can make or break a contract, as you can see by that other one. In this one again, you've got ace, king, 4, 2. In no trumps, you can lead the 2, but in a trump suit, you must lead the ace. The ace and followed by the king. And in this one here, if you've just got ace, king of a suit, don't lead that in no trumps, whatever you do. Just avoid that, lead something else. But in a suit contract, you can lead the king, followed by the ace. Now that should show your partner that you have just got the 2, and if they get in, you can trump the next one of that suit. Or your leads, tell your partner some information, and you should try and learn them. They're on the back. I have got some scorecards. They're on the back of the scorecard, what you should lead on each suit. I'll just get your scorecard. I've meant to put them out before. I've been right, yeah. Okay, so this is your scorecard, and at the back it's got here, open it leads, and it's got underlined what you should lead in each suit. It's quite useful to look at.
Poltergeist.
Pardon?
Poltergeist.
Whatever. I don't know what you should do.
say poltergeist.
Oh, the poltergeist. Oh, right. Oh. Put me all off thread now. Poltergeist.
So you're not playing to win the trick necessarily, you're communicating to your partner.
Yeah, so both things. You're doing 2 things. As with bidding, when you're defending, you have to communicate with your partner. As declarer, you can see your hand dummy, so you can work out which hand you want to play from and to. As defenders, you can't see your partner's hand. You can see dummy, everybody can see dummy, but you have to try and work out how to communicate to your partner what you have in your hand. Now, by leading this card here, this king, it tells your partner, or it should tell your partner, that you've got the queen and jack underneath it. It also tells your partner you haven't got the ace. Okay? And it's the same with this. If you lead the queen here, it tells them you've got the jack and 10, but you haven't got the ace and the king. And the same with that. This one here, jack, 10, 9, you could be leading the top of an internal sequence, but you've definitely got the 10 and the 9. And this here is the 4th highest along the suit, so you must be leading away from an honour. So you must have something. You should, generally speaking, you should try and return your partner's lead. And you should avoid leading anything. But when you're in a suit, don't lead away from this. Don't lead that in a suit. Lead this. But don't lead it. Say you had ace, 4, 3, 2, right? You try not to lead that. If you were playing in trumps, that would be a bad lead. If you had king, 5, 6, 2, you wouldn't lead that, so you wouldn't lead away from an ace. So that's what it means when you say lead away. Lead away means leading a small one away from your honour. So you don't lead a small one. And you don't also lead that. You don't lead the ace because you haven't got the king underneath it. If you lead the ace, your partner will expect you to have the king. You don't lead that either. So if you've got this sort of hand, you try and lead something. So say you've also got in your hand this. So you've got 4, 8, 9, 11, 13 cards. You could lead, this is a suit contract, you could lead the doubleton. So you could lead the top, you'd lead the 7, followed by the 2. And that would show your partner that you can trump in next time if you get it. If you've got these 3 cards and you didn't have it, and this was something like this, ace, 4, 2, and that, and you didn't have that one there. So say you had.
But how do there aren't all that 7's the 4th?
Because when you play the next card, it will become clear.
Oh, would it?
Yeah. Yeah. So say you had something like that you don't lead against this, you lead what's called a mud lead, which is you lead the middle up, down, so you lead the 7, and this is the 8, and then the 6, when you play them in that order, it's called a mud lead. But the doubleton and the mud lead aren't particularly good leads, but they're when you've got nothing better to lead. Sometimes you've got to lead. I mean, obviously if you're playing in a suit contract and you've got a singleton, that might be useful if you can, especially if you've got some trumps. But don't lead a singleton trump. There's all sorts of, this whole book's written on leads. Yeah.
Which you've summarised in 5 minutes.
I just said, so that's that bit. You might have got that, yeah. Did I have something else I wanted to tell you?
You know the mud lead?
It's just
Yeah.
playing. And
We
make
are
a mistake, isn't it?
Pardon?
It's better to play, practice and make the mistakes, and then as long as the mistakes are pointed out to you, that's the way you're gonna learn, isn't it?
It is, but
By
everybody,
playing.
everybody learns differently. And some people, I mean, I'm the same as you, I learn by playing, but some people learn by reading. David learns by reading. He
You
loves
see, that
to read.
confuses me, reading, I'm doing all this,
But
it's
everybody,
confusing me.
yeah, everybody's different, you see.
Yeah.
And I have to give you the information
Yeah.
so that other people in the room do benefit from it. That's the thing, because everybody, you know, we can't just sit and because I'd have to be at the table, everybody's table, telling everybody which card and what not to do and how to do and going through it, and it would take far too long. So we have to have at least a bit of
Good knowledge.
structure and knowledge that I give you, and hopefully that will sink in a little bit. And then when you come to the table, you'll think, oh yes, she said not to do that, didn't she? Hopefully you will. I think it takes 3 times to tell you things, and eventually it'll sink in. It takes 7 times to forget something, and 3 times. So if you learn something bad, it'll take you 7 times to try and forget it.
You know, you said the mud lead. The mud lead is 7, 6. You pick the middle one,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
What if you don't get a chance to? What if you lose it? You don't. They
Well, you
don't lose
constantly, it doesn't matter. Just next time you play it, make sure you play the 8 to show your partner that it wasn't a doubleton and you can't bluff. It's, don't worry, I'm just trying to give you an
Yeah, an
explanation of the
example,
leads.
Yeah.
Of what to lead, because that's what we're doing. We're going through that, done that. Yeah. So we'll play some cards. That's it now. Thanks you, David.